And actually, I'll go
Hello,
here.
Twitch and the YouTubes. Hope everyone's doing all right. How you doing, Big Tuck?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
I am getting ready to head to Atlanta tomorrow morning. So I think I told you this that I was like potentially at Magic 30, bum bum bum, which we'll get to in a second. That I was waiting on the girl I'm dating to either respond or I was going to have other plans.
I don't. I kind of vaguely remember that.
Anyways, long story short is I will be going to Buenos Aires as a single man, so that all panned out. And because of that, the team needs me to go to Atlanta. So the only ride I could get down there is we're leaving tomorrow morning at like 5 in the morning.
Oh, you're
So
driving to Atlanta.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
because it's only like
God,
4 hours from here, so we'll
only
manage.
four
How
hours.
are you?
I'm
How was
good.
your? Are you fully recovered from our Las Vegas excursion?
It's odd. I had like I don't know, like my stomach was kind of like topsy turvy on Tuesday, and Wednesday I ended up taking the day off work because I just didn't feel great. And I'm kind of
Yeah,
seeing a trend of like when I go on these trips, when I come back, I don't know if it's like something in the water, the food, what,
yeah,
but all of a sudden I don't feel great for like a day. Now, granted, it
yeah.
was no pneumonia like
Yeah,
effing
right,
my
yeah.
bachelor
It's not
party.
half of us getting. It's not half of us getting Oregon Trail diseases.
Correct, correct. But no, we did want to take some time. This will be not on a recording, so whoever is tuning in, I hope you guys enjoy it. We did want to kind of give our thoughts about Magic 30 and just what our experience was. And I think, Tuck, if we just want to kind of keep it simple into like kind of three sections. One, um, did we like the con type experience that they've introduced? Because definitely they did more panels, a lot more interactive stations than they've done at past Magic Fest. Number two, how do we feel about the pass system? Do we feel like it was worth it? We got our money worthwhile? And then I think the last thing is just like, if this is what Magic Fest are going to be moving forward, are you more, less, or the same inclined to attend? So
Okay.
I think for me, I'll start with the con experience. I actually thought that was really cool. They had these five different planes that many of you may have
Yeah.
seen on social. Like, Teferi kind of had like his wizard school for the blue one. I want to say it was Chandra for the red plane.
Yep.
Very neat. They had three tables, like not a lot of tables to
Yeah.
like play at. So you kind of had to wait in line if you wanted to do that. But I thought that was cool. My only complaint of the entire con experience is I think, Tuck, if you took out the con stuff, it would have been a lot less congested. I think they
Yeah.
picked a building that was too small to do everything they wanted to do.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think like now I the other convention I went to or whatever this year was Command Fest Richmond, which I learned a lot from as well. And I learned even more from going this way. So I thought
Mhm.
that was fun, right? But it's kind of like for me, I don't it was cool to see cosplayers and all that jazz, right? But for me, I'm not like into it that much.
Yeah.
So while there were a lot of cool artists, and you and I complained about, well, which we'll talk about at a later point, you and I had our own thoughts about like trying to get this artist stuff, which took up a lot of space as well. So I
Mhm.
think it's like, I think the con stuff would have been cooler if it was a little bit better organized, where it's like you can sign up for times or something like that. But it was cool. I think the coolest thing, and I'll post it somewhere, of you with the weather light,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like going like like that was cool, right? So like
Sure.
that was fun, like a fun photo op and like seeing these things in live. So it was much different than Richmond. So I did like that part of it, minus the congestion of it, which I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and I think because this doesn't really tie into the next section, so I'll just kind of give my comments here. Like, I think the number one complaint that I have is there were so many lines to wait in, and none of the
Yeah.
lines it was like 5 minutes. It was, oh, do you want to wait in line for 45 minutes
Yeah.
to maybe get the thing that you want, or it may be
Yep.
gone by the time you actually get up there, especially in Artist Alley. So I definitely think for future large scale con Magic Fest that they're trying to do, every artist needs two rows. They need a row for signatures, altars, and even if you want to put artist proofs in that as well, because someone could just come up and buy all the artist
Yeah.
proofs while people are waiting in line. Okay. Artist proofs, signatures, doodles, things that you want the artist to do, one line. If you just want to freaking buy something, you should be able to do that in a
Yeah.
shorter line. And
Yes.
it needs to be to where If I went up and bought a playmat and I wanted like RK Post to sign it, well, you need to go get in the signature line.
Back,
I'm
go back in
totally
line.
for that. I that just absolutely ruined it for me because
It's
many of the products that I wanted to buy were all sold out because I just
yeah.
refused to wait in an hour and a half line.
And I think it's like my friend Scooty Shuffles, friend of the show, works in food service, and he has this complaint all the time about food trucks. He's like, "Why is the same person taking the orders the same person who's giving the food out?" Right?
Hmm.
So you get these huge bottlenecks of like people waiting just in line to get their food that's ready to go, and then
Yep.
other. So yeah, it's the same thing, right? If you're just trying to do a transaction as opposed to something that takes time and interaction, I think that would be great, right? And that would incentivize me as well to go and maybe buy more stuff, right? Because I'm like, I
Sure.
feel less pressured and less like, there's so many people trying to get this thing, right?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Okay, so the passes. We each did a Ruby pass. I think it was $350. Effectively got us interest into the con itself for 3 days. Got us access into the command zone play area, which is a restricted play area. One on-demand commander event, three Commander Legend boosters, two Modern Horizon boosters, not set, just normal Modern Horizon boosters, a Commander playmat, a couple foil arcane signets, the Richard Garfield promo, and I think one of the promo soul rings. I think
Yeah,
that's it.
one promo so
One
ring.
promo soul ring. Oh, and then we got it in Magic 30 pin. So this is probably where I'm going to be the harshest. That was a complete waste of money. I am all for capitalism. I am all for, hey, if
Mhm.
people are willing to pay it, go ahead and do it. But there needs to be value with it. And I think that was very evident with the Black Lotus package. It was this $800 one that people had to buy. People were pissed about the value that they got. So what did they do? They included the Magic 30 proxy 4 packs that are worth $1,000 a 4 pack,
Yeah.
or that's what they're at least selling them for. So the fact that they listen, they're like, "Ooh, we've pissed off our VIPs. Let's now give them overvalue." Yet everyone else, because I think there was another
Yeah.
one. I think it was like the Pearl was the same
That's
cost
yeah,
as the
which
Ruby.
yeah, or
No,
maybe a little less,
no,
right?
the Pearl and the Ruby were the same. You're thinking Sapphire. That's what
That's right. Yeah.
Dennis and Nicole did. So the
Right, right,
Pearl
right.
was just like the Commander one, but you just got tons of on-demand events, no command zone access. Honestly, Tuck, it would have been better for us to do that. Would have
We
given us
should have done
stuff
that.
to
Yeah.
do, gotten a lot more value because we maybe got $80 in value. The whole
Yeah.
playing in the command zone area for me was an absolute waste. Every table was just about competitive, which I'm normally fine with. I just don't want to play competitive all day long.
Yeah, yeah,
Number
yeah.
2, most of the creators weren't in there.
Yeah. Yep.
And then number 3, it was hard to find games, believe it or not, because you didn't have the judges helping. So many introverts
Yes.
were just out there like, no, I don't. Or they just, people just mope around and you kind of have to like hound them over to
Yeah.
come
I had to
play.
get out of my chair to go like grab someone who was walking
Yes.
around aimlessly and be like, "Hey, can you come play with us real quick? I'm leaving in an hour."
Yep. Yep. Pretty much.
Yep.
So I think it was an absolute waste of money to do it again. I would have bought the cheapest pass possible and then just
Yeah.
figured it out.
I think again, comparing it to Command Fest Richmond, I think the VIP pass was 3 days that came with 3 pre-release events of brand new cards from Baldur's Gate, 5 commander on demands,
Wow.
and other stuff as well, right? So even though that was a lot, the pre-releases were a lot. The fact that like people were like, some people's like, I'm gonna go and wait in line for this artist. Another guy's like, I'm gonna go dick around and go get beers or whatever. And I was like, I want to play, but I just like I don't care who I'm playing with. I just want to play casual, right? I just want to
Sure.
go. So you go hand your pass in, and they're like, all right, great, go wait over there. A judge will call you. He'll sit you down. He'll give you your prize points, and you're off to the races, right?
Yep.
So I think like if they had included, knowing that we were just doing Commander and no other events, if they included 10 packs or 10
Yeah.
something like that, right? Like I think to me that would have been worth it and have a better chance of pooling our resources to the prize pool. But I completely agree with you that the pass and the money put into that was felt like kind of a sunk cost in a bad way, right?
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. And literally, a collective for you guys to understand the amount of ticks they gave us for our one on demand was
Yeah.
enough to get 3 standard rotation booster packs. That was it.
Yep, that's it. And when I went to Richmond, paid less money, got more cards from the pre-release, I was able to get a pre-con that day. Like that came out that day, the party
Wow.
pre-con. So again, just much better value.
So, kind of the final one, with how this went, if future Magic Fest were going to be the same, would we be more inclined, less inclined, or about the same interest level to attend? I think people could probably tell I am severely, severely less inclined to attend any other Magic convention that I would need to actually travel to. If there's
Yeah,
one in Kansas City, I would do a day pass and go. And even if I didn't have the best day, it's like, I spent $50, whatever.
yeah, yeah,
If I had to drive to St. Louis, Oklahoma City, Wichita, maybe Des Moines, I don't know. I'd have to kind of talk about it, but I think any type of significant event to go to, like Tuck, I'm gonna be honest. I'm so thankful they moved the Charlotte one to Philly because like
yeah.
I wanted to come. I want to come visit you, but I
Yeah.
don't know, like, based off how this weekend, I don't know if I want to waste my weekend at a Magic Fest type
Right.
thing where it's like I'd like to be more hanging out with Tuck and doing things with him, even if it is all Magic related, and I don't want to deal with all the frustrations that this con
Yeah.
is giving me.
I think, yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm like pretty much on the same boat. If it's like a 4 hour drive or a short flight, like Philly
Hmm.
is still like maybe, but I've never been there before. But like you said, I'm gonna buy a day, and then the rest of the time I'm gonna be in Philly hanging out, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. Going to this makes me way more enticed to go to like other command fests and those sort of cons that are more focused for us. Whereas I felt like this one, maybe they stretch themselves too thin by trying to do everything, right? Like we have cosplayer contests, we have the command zone that have occasional on fire, we have a modern tournament, we have mystery. Like it's not like there's so much stuff going on at any time
Yeah.
that like unless you meticulously planned out your entire weekend and were willing to wait in line, you were gonna walk away disappointed one way or another, right?
Hmm. Yep, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, if anything, I think they should have done this con slash Magic Fest at a larger convention, given
Yes.
way more room, and that would have allowed for more lines in the artist area and the booths, and maybe people
Yeah.
wouldn't have been like literally playing outside under lantern light because there would have been tables available inside.
Or sneaking into the other unoccupied area of the
Yeah,
complex to do it too. To
exactly.
16th floor in the B building or whatever it was.
Oh man. All right. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? I think we've bitched about Magic 30 and Vegas enough. Oh, and then the last point I'd make about that, I've already told Tuck and some of our friend group. I think if our friend group in like 2023 is like, you know what, we still want to do a Magic Fest, I think I would rather say, hey, what's the cost of the convention pass? $350. What's 350 times the 7 people that are going, 8 people
Yeah.
that are going? We could put that money and make our own fun experience somewhere else. And something me and Marketing Ross were talking about last night or 2 nights ago when we were recording Budget Shop is how much more fun would it be to say, hey guys, let's go to Portland or let's go, even you could even say
Yes.
Vegas, but pick a city and then just say, okay, each day we're going to go take over an LGS. We're going to like the most popular
Oh, yeah, yeah,
LGSs.
yeah, yeah.
Like we as a channel are reaching out. Hey, CMDTower, we got like 9 people coming in to play Commander. We're taking over your spot on a Thursday, and we just show up in
Right.
force and just play games. But then we're not tied to a Wizards. We could go do whatever the fuck we
Yeah, we
want
can do what
after
we can do
that.
whatever we want. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree completely, right? And especially places like Seattle, Portland, like places where even if you're like, "Hey, we're going to OKC and doing this at this date." I'd be like, "That sounds pretty cool." Like I've never been to
yeah,
Oklahoma City before, right? Or Boise, Idaho, or something
hmm,
like that. Like I think that would be way more fun because most of like to be honest, 90% of the fun I had was with you, Dustin, Dennis, and
yeah.
Denise. So
Nicole.
uh, Nicole. I just wanted them all to be threes. So yeah, I agree. I think that's a great idea for next year.
All right. Well, let's get into it. I know you guys are here for Brews and Build, so we're going to start the recording in 3, 2, 1.
I don't have a can ready to open yet. So
Oh, here we go. Opening the eggnog.
oh yeah, there you go. Shake it
Glug,
up.
glug, 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 glug. Hey guys, welcome to episode 159 of CMD Towers Brews and Builds. I'm MrComboNumber5, and my fellow host could be tempted to put in a sword of fire and dice, BigTuck.
Oh,
See what I did
how's it
there?
going?
Uh,
Uh, I did. Yeah. Wait, is that an actual card? Is that
no,
an uncard?
no,
Oh,
that would have been amazing though.
okay. So here's something that I thought was going to happen with this. Hey, cats and kittens. I'm slowly losing my mind as we're getting ready to go to Buenos Aires. So there's a card that because this whole Infinity thing made so little sense to me, right? About like if it's silver bordered or whatever. So when
Yeah.
this came out, I was like, no way. Uh, the Sword of Dungeons and Dragons is finally legal. We can finally put it in decks, maybe even the one we have today. And then I looked, it has a silver border. So I was like, well, that's lame, but whatever. How are we doing? Hanging in
Uh,
there. It's a
yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, doing all right. It was kind of going through Hell Week right now. I'm now actually leading two completely separate teams. Um,
What?
so it, yeah, they basically had me take over the state of Iowa from
Oh,
one of my peers. So now I have Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri. But all of my team for Iowa is completely separate than the ones I have for Kansas, Missouri. So like a
hmm.
different inside rep, different services peer, different data center peer. It's all new. So I
Yeah.
literally feel like I'm being a manager, not being paid to be a manager, but still having
Right,
to do
right,
all the
right.
same work because I'm literally having to manage two different groups of people. So that's been a bit stressful, especially when you dig into your sales forecast and it's like, oh, 90% of this doesn't exist. And it's been like just pushed out in Salesforce quarter to quarter just to get it off the shit list on the radar.
Yeah! Using Salesforce for its approved reason for fudging the numbers.
So
I
that,
should just
that
come. I should have just come and worked for your company at some point. Just do their Salesforce engineering
yeah, you should.
because it clearly needs help. The funny part, the funny part about that is like when I tell people like if I meet someone out at a bar or like when I joined the rugby team and I was like, they're like, "What do you do?" It's like I'm a software engineer. And that's it, right? I don't really need to. I don't need
Yeah.
to say anything else, right? I don't need to get into specifics of. Well, I'm actually more of like a business systems manager. It's just like, no, I'm just a software engineer. Like, let's get it out of the way. And then eventually, like, if I talk to someone who's nerdy, I'll be like, actually, they're like, oh, what language do you do? Like, are you da da da? It's like, well, I'm actually like more of a Salesforce business systems engineer. And they're like, what? And then every single person goes like, hey, fuck you, like, because they think I work for Salesforce, and I'm like, no, I'm trying to make your lives better for these different companies. Yeah, so it's just funny whenever I hear people be like, Salesforce sucks, we hate it, blah 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 blah. Every single time I'm like, I should just do my own thing, right? Because I've heard this from maybe 10 different friends and just be like, look, here's my card, here's what I charge, I can come and completely fix this up from the ground up. So uh I say as I actually am supposed to be fixing a nonprofit company Salesforce on the side, which I've not even touched in literally the 3 weeks since I met with them. So
Well, good, good. It seems like you're
what are you gonna do?
someone that outside contractors should be looking at. Apparently, hey, hire
I
me. It'll
just
take a month for me to start your project.
I think what I need to do, I think the problem is I have this like high fluting idea that like, oh yeah, I'll just take a break from work to go do this and like knock this stuff out. But like in reality, these people don't really, I feel like most people who are not IT or haven't been in an agile team, they kind of like don't really know how to best explain what they're looking for. So a lot
Sure.
of times they'll give me something like, hey, can you fix this? And I go and look at it. I'm like, I need way more direction than that, right? Like I don't even know what I don't even know what you're trying to fix.
I need
So
a lot more than
and
just can you fix this?
yeah, right. So I think I'm gonna try to work on that maybe when I'm down in Buenos Aires. So we'll find out. So it all
Well,
depends. Get this too. Okay, so last thing I'll say because this is the second to last recording I'll be on in November. Maybe the only one because we're recording the one on the Drinkathon, which actually comes out in December, right?
yeah, but that one will be live. So it's like this is the last recording people will hear of you this month, but you'll be this is your second to last live stream this month.
Yes. Okay. So before I go, the last thing I'll say is I actually kind of so when you went to Italy both times, right? What's their like dinner schedule look like, or like their eating social schedules?
Well, I mean, I kind of make my own schedule. But I can tell you from
Yes.
restaurant hours, I mean, breakfast isn't like a real thing over there.
Yeah.
It's more like coffee will be available and like a light pastry. But if you actually want breakfast, most of those places don't open until like 8 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Most dinner spots don't open until 7 or 8 at night.
Mm-hmm.
I would say most people don't go to dinner like as long as it's not like a busy restaurant. Most people don't show up till like 9 or 9:30.
Right. Okay. That's the same thing in Buenos Aires. So like there's this gap of time between like 5 p.m. and 9 where like restaurants aren't open
Yep.
and Senior Lane, our contact down there was like he like had these strict things where it's like you have to eat at this time or else you're going to be starving and hungry for hours afterwards. And I was like, "Look, dude, you don't have to convince me to eat at any time." He asked me like what's your favorite dates? What are like your favorite dates for eating heavy meals? And I said Monday through Sunday. Like it doesn't matter. So like I think I only asked that because it seemed odd, but I forget that Buenos Aires is mostly found. It's like supposed to be very very European in that sense,
Mhm.
where like people don't go till dinner to 9. All the tango shows and things that he wants to bring me to don't start till 10 or 11 on a weeknight. That's
Yeah.
like we gotta lose my mind, but here we go.
Yeah, isn't because I think Buenos Aires was colonized by Spain or Portugal?
What is it? One of
I
the
can't
two.
remember
Yeah,
which
I
one.
think
Yeah, it's one of the 2.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's got the people call it like the Spain and France of South America. So
Oh, okay.
we'll see. 13 billion people, or sorry, 13 million people in that city. So it's
I
a
was
big
like
one.
13 billion. What are they on top
The
of each
entire
other?
planet, the entire planet's population times point 0.8 in this
Um,
one area.
well, no, because isn't the planet only at like 6 billion or 8 billion?
I thought it was 3. Am I way behind?
Well, you said 12 billion, so it would be
Yeah,
like
so it'd be
4x.
oh, it is X.
Yeah.
Yes. Hold on. Human.
So
I'm
so
typing in
basically you're
human.
trying to describe Buenos Aires as Coruscant is what I'm hearing.
Holy shit! World population clock 7.98
Yeah,
billion people.
that's what I thought.
Oh my god. Ugh.
I know. And if you look it up, I think India and China is roughly 30% of the world's population.
Combined?
Yeah, something
Oh,
like that. Because I know China's over a billion, and I'm pretty sure India's over a billion. I just don't know how close they are to 2 billion.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ugh.
So, well, hey, you guys
Way too
didn't
many
come here for
people.
geography. You came here for Brews Builds. It's our deck tech
Woo!
series. We conquered our path to 32, tackled tons of EDH themes, and we're going to be discussing, or rather, theory crafting a deck that does not exist yet. Where every episode will be a new deck, and we correlate these decks similar to how we brew beer. So we really broke our decks down into 4 different categories. The first one's rampant setting your board state. We call that grain.
And just to point out, Mr. Combo does know his anthropology. China 1.42 billion, India 1.41 billion, USA 335 million. Grains are the foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, using a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of said beers. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp into bigger threats. And just like a grain profile, they usually mix up staples and specialty cards.
And the next one is how does your board really interact with your opponents? We call that hops.
And hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal floral flavors. They grow in a variety of strands and help separate subcategories like IPAs. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can ultimately do what it wants.
And then we have how does your deck close out, win the game, or just accomplish its shenanigery? We call that yeast.
Shenanigery. Yeast are living microorganisms that eat the sugar and they eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. I literally can't do this without reading these notes. We've been doing this for 3 years. It adds alcohol content to carbonation. Without yeast, you'd be drinking flat sugar water. And without yeast cards, your deck wouldn't meet the goal of actually winning the game.
And then we do have shenanigans. It can be pet cards, kind of fun synergies that are just kind of in the deck because we like them. We call that spice.
And I got one in here that you're gonna pull out your hair with, which I'm really excited about. Not every beer has them, but
Rampaging
spice.
Balots.
No, come on. I'm not a monster. Spice is another additive helps separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the cream that turns a stout into an eggnog stout, boom, or the addition of hops that turn IPA into a double IPA. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, this is where we generally talk about it.
So without further ado, let's get brewing. Before we announce our commander, I do want to point this out to the collective. I may die of diabetes. 1 bottle of eggnog,
740
740.
calories. Okay, what is it? Protein or is it just all fat? It should be some protein.
Eight,
What's it? Read
18,
out those
18,
percentages.
18 grams of protein, 90 grams of carbs, 34 grams of fat.
What's the percentages next to those?
The protein literally doesn't show a percentage. The total fat, it's 44% of your daily value. Carbs, it's 33% of your daily value. It's 132% of the sugar content you're supposed to take in a day, and it's 110% of the saturated fat you're supposed to take in a day. Woof.
Well, here, so speaking of brews and builds, do you know why beers used to be brewed to be higher alcohol content?
So they would last longer.
Close, but it's when the monks who would brew them would fast. You can still drink when you're fasting. So those heavier beers have more calories, more
Oh,
carbs, and more alcohol that kind of like cuts their hunger out.
that's kind of
So
cool.
that's
I
why
didn't know that.
that's why all those Belgian beers, like those Belgians triples and quads, are so strong and heavy.
That is a
There you
good little
go.
tidbit. Well,
Infotainment, baby.
the next infotainment is our commander. We selected the Space Family Goblinson. Yeah, this is an interesting uncommander. So, Big Tuck, why don't you read off this commander, and we'll kind of maybe talk about why we went this direction.
Sure. So the Space Family Goblinson is two colorless and gruull. That's a red and a green for a 1/1 legendary creature Goblin Guest. That's an uncommon, currently for a quarter. The Space Family Goblinson has trample as long as you've rolled 3 or more dice this turn. Whenever you roll a die, put a 1/1 counter on the Space Family Goblinson.
Yeah. So,
And I refuse to
as
read flavor text from an uncard, so suck it.
the Goblin word for vacation translates roughly to a battered landscape of noise and violence.
It's like Vegas.
It's just
That's
like
actually pretty
Vegas.
good. That's pretty all right,
So,
fair enough. You got me. That's pretty good.
we decided with kind of this season of Brews and Builds, we're really going to focus around legendary eligible commanders that have been recently previewed, actually released. Maybe it's a pre-con and that's brand new, and focusing those on Brews and Builds. So then that way, as you guys, not everyone's trying to build commanders that are a decade old, like Tuck and I sometimes do. Sometimes you're going for the hot newness. So we thought, how fun would it be? We just started with the pre-con last week. Now picking an
Yeah.
unset legendary that's actually legal, I thought would be very entertaining. So really, when I look at this card, I feel like if you're building the deck top down as we do, it's Voltron and it's dice
Yes.
rolling, right?
Yeah, like that's kind of pretty much how I boiled it down. Um, there's a lot of cards. The lion's share of the cards that have come out in the D&D sets, shockingly to no one's surprise, have a lot of dice rolling mechanics. But I feel like there hasn't been one. There's really been like one or two ish that really lean into it. And while I think the only downside in this card is that it starts as a 1/1, which is kind of
Yeah.
brutal, right? But I think that if you shove enough dice rolling, enough combat tricks and Voltron-y stuff into it, this can turn into something that can quickly pick up steam and recover. I think gruull decks can be very aggressive and very fast out the gates, which I think is something that people might be surprised by this, where they look at it and they're like, wait, so you're just rolling dice? And you're like, yeah, but I might be rolling 3-4 a turn, and we might just be like blowing off on there, additional with equipment and all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
so I
sure.
built it very much that way too.
Yeah, well, and I think that the key way that the card is written is whenever you roll a die, not one or more
Yes.
dice. Um, because that, even if your card says roll 10, it's like, great, I'm going to roll 10 dice and we're going to see what I end up getting off of it. So I do really, really like that. Anything that we can get weird gimmick mechanics like dice rolling, like more
Sure.
involved, like I'm all for that. Surprisingly, Tech, I'm curious your thoughts. It was pretty difficult to search in Scryfall for specific dice rolling cards because, like, if you just did dice, you actually lost a bunch of cards. If you
Right.
did the word roll, it would pull any card that had ROLL anywhere
Right.
within
Right. Right.
even a word. So I literally had to go do searches for D4, D6, D8,
Oh,
D12, D20.
just just spam out that way.
That's literally what I had to do. How difficult did you find it to find dice specific cards?
Well, I started looking. I kind of looked at a few pre-built decks, and a lot of the decks that I saw people were building were for like limited, which is weird, like 60 cards. So a lot of them, or maybe it's Pioneer or some other thing. It was not 100 card formats. So that kind of helped like getting the ball, or should I say, the dice rolling in my head about like what's good effects and what's not. And once I kind of found my core ones where I'm like, I feel like these are the ones that are most interesting or the things that
Hmm.
are like the coolest or anything along those lines, it took some of the burden off me to be like, okay, like we kind of have that base of it. What's 3 to 5 cards that we're talking about today that I might be able to punch this deck through, or might be able to kind of put some finishing touches on it. But
Okay,
yeah, it
yeah.
was. I mean, it's stupid because it's like, yeah, like you said, D4. Let me ask you this: can you identify the 5 dice that are primarily used in Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, D20.
Yep.
These aren't yeah, D20,
I think there's
D4.
actually 6. Yep.
You got your D6.
Yep.
You have your D12,
Yes.
and then I'm pretty sure there's a D8 or D10.
Yes. There's one of each. There you go.
Oh,
That's your
there you go.
6. Nailed it. But when you play vampires the way that the good Lord wanted you to, you only need a D10. So there you go, cutting down on dice budget.
And then one thing I did want to look up is I'm kind of curious, especially with you saying that, how many, oh my gosh, there's only 59 decks registered on EDH Rec with this commander. So it's definitely a fringe one. I could definitely see this being one that people are going to try to like look up and see
Yeah.
if there is something out there. So let's get into this. I'm
Well,
excited.
I got one last thing to talk
Okay.
about real quick. So EDH Rec does like the popularity of these commanders every time a set comes out, and this was one of the unders. So we are choosing, not only are we choosing a fringe commander, we're choosing one that is likely not going to have 600 decks by the time this date comes around next year. So it's even
Wow.
more fringe.
Wow. Well, hey, that's how we do it here. Well,
It
before we
feels
get
good.
into the actual meat of the episode, we would love for you to check out our amazing Patreon community at patreon.com/CMDTower. We have 4 different tiers that go $3, $7, 15, and 25. The higher the tier, the more swag, the more gear that you get. But even just for our base one, you get full unblocked access into our Discord community. Plus, between now and Thanksgiving, you do get a 20% coupon to our Etsy store that has all of our swag. So if you do have a couple extra bucks or you're looking to support CMD Tower, we would greatly appreciate it at patreon.com/CMD Tower. So let's get over into the grains and I'll start this off. Now look, um,
No, now look.
my grains aren't necessarily CMC friendly because the way that I really picked my cards is I tried to primarily focus on, okay, if someone builds this, they're going to do their Kadamas Reach, Rampant Growth, Soul Ring, Talisman. They're going to handle that base ramp package that I think will help get you accelerated quickly.
Yes.
This is a card though that allows you to roll a couple d4s and choose a result, and
Ooh.
maybe it's tokens that you get of the beast creature variety. Maybe it's basic lands that you're getting out of your library. So that's why I think Wild Endeavor is a really good card to put
Oh.
into this deck. So, 4 colorless green green sorcery, roll 2d4 and choose one result. Create a number of 3/3 green beast creature tokens equal to that result. Then search your library for a number of basic land cards equal to the other, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So, one thing that
Okay.
Tuck and I didn't talk about before we started the grain section is another mechanic. I didn't include a bunch of them, but there's a lot of mechanics and cards out there that say, hey, ignore the lowest roll or roll an additional as well. So, even though this is a D4 and it's like you could be getting like a 1 or a 2, and that would kind of suck, especially for 6 mana. I'm assuming by the time we can cast this, we probably have one of those
Yes.
ignore the lowest rolls, and we're going to actually get 3 d4s and have a better likelihood to get maybe 3 tokens and 4 basics, or
Yep.
vice versa.
Right. And again, we're going to be able to run this out so fast. I think the way I feel like this deck's going to be built is exactly like you said, right? Like most of our 1 through 3 drops are just gas
Yep.
acceleration, right? Every single one we're going to shove in there because there's such limited of other things to get. And
Hmm.
then it's going to let us have these big payoff cards like this.
Yeah.
And uh it's funny that you mention cards that affect kind of the way you roll your dice because and this was a tough one for me, but I feel that the most bang for your buck you get out of your card is just coming it out flat, and it costs 1 mana even. And we were
Okay.
talking about Chaboy Barbarian class. So 1 red for an enchantment class. So it comes in as level 1. Then you can pay money to turn it to level 2 and level 3, right? So level 1. If you would roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many dice plus 1 and ignore the roll. So for this build, I just put it as that, right? And there's this card I think is very strong in this deck because it continues to get better later into the game, but you don't have to invest into it unless you don't want to. So Colorless in a red is level 2. When you roll 1 or more dice, target creature control gets +2/+0 and gains menace until end of turn. In my opinion, that's where you kind of can stop it in this deck, especially. And then finally, 2 colorless in a red, creatures you control have haste. So like I said, it's kind of fills in one of those cards that we've talked about where it was kind of hard to categorize. So
Sure.
I chose just the fact that for 1 red mana, you have an enchantment that is difficult to remove for the rest of the game that's going to help you get the dice rolls that you want.
Yeah, I'm all for this. This actually was one of my picks, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take it off, pick some other sweatier stuff, and
So
hopefully Big Tuck will talk about it. And I think the cool thing about this card is the fact that it does stick around.
yeah,
And I think a lot of players with these class cards accidentally glance at them online or in an LGS, and they immediately assume Saga, and they're like, okay, well this
yes,
thing's just gonna be gone
right.
after 3 turns, and it's like, no, 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 this stays forever. And then it
Correct.
becomes the whole challenge of, well, how much enchantment removal do your opponents have, and or do they really want to waste it on barbarian class?
Yeah, is this the one to do it on?
Hmm.
Totally agree with you.
All right. So my next card is I had to talk about one of the mana rocks because there are some mana rocks that do some cool things with uh dice rolling. Now, this particular one I really like because even if you don't need the mana, you can continue to tap it to roll a d20. Uh-oh, I hear a rattlesnake. There's a snake
It's
in my boot. Oh
it's
god, no, there's
it's
a
rattling,
dice in
baby.
my
It's
boot.
rattling.
3, 2, 1, component pouch.
Component pouch, the best mana. Well, we might get there, but definitely one of the best mana rocks in the deck. 3 colorless for an artifact. It's an uncommon, and you get it for 22 cents.
Tap it to roll a d20. If you get a 1 through 9, put a component counter on component pouch. If you get a 10 through 20, put 2 component counters on component pouch. And you can tap it to remove a component counter from component pouch and add 2 mana of different colors. So, I honestly, the
Love it.
reason I picked this one is I was like, there's no bad effect. It's either
Right.
I'm getting 2 mana or I'm getting a free dice roll that beefs up my commander.
And I think like I completely agree with you. And I think like if it was 15 through 20, 14 through 20 or
Sure.
something like that, then it gets a little sweatier, right? But this is just the fact that you have a 1 in 4 chance it's going to pay for itself in 2 turns. You know what
Yep.
I mean? Like, or even pay for itself and
Plus
more.
1. Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is cool. Do you think that this is too sweaty to put in normal decks, right? With the glut of three colorless mana rocks that we have.
Yeah, unless you're doing like a proliferate deck. I could see it being really good in
Mm-hmm.
a proliferate deck.
Ooh, very
Now,
good.
now,
Oh
here's
yeah,
the
that's really
challenge.
good.
It's 2 mana of different colors. So even though legally you could run this in a monocolored deck because nothing's highlighted on the card, you just kind of need to be aware of if you do it like in a monocolored, or if it's like I need 2
Right,
white, this will not give you white white or black black. You're gonna
right.
have to do a different.
Which is funny because like usually that's like a plus, right? Like for a
Yeah,
lot of times the ones that give you two of one color kind of stifles you, which is like, and I think that's why it's really good in this deck. But that is an interesting concession because if you're running like mono black Skittles that cares about proliferate, is
yeah.
this good enough to make the cut?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe.
The only other thing I'll say about this, and this is again why this is stupid, for some reason, and in their infinite wisdom, Wizards decided to put this one on the list. Great. Great. A card that we all needed, an uncommon for 22 cents that you could pull
Hey, they
randomly out of them.
they needed to fill the list.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, what's your last grain card?
This is one, this was, I think, your number one pick from, there was something, I don't remember if it was a set review or something, but when this card came out, you were hot on it for the right reasons. Because for
Okay.
one thing, it's just a better manolith, right? We have another 3-drop that gives you a 1 mana of any color, and we have joked in the past that this is something that is like it's a nice to have, right? Like it's like a cool, maybe you'll get it, you're not losing anything for it. But this one, now that we're going to be rolling so many dice, becomes kind of a powerhouse tutor in it because I think it's going to be pretty easy to get to the 100 charge counters that you need on it.
So here's the interesting thing. I have that card in my list, but I actually have it in the yeast section.
Oh,
So that's
because you
interesting that you have it here.
we're talking about a thing
One,
that's like a
2, 3. Vexing puzzle
Vexing puzzle
box.
box. Okay, cool. I was like, wait a minute. Like, how did I not sell that any better? Okay, I'll read it this time. So 3 colorless for an artifact that's a mythic rare from Baldur's Gate. Whenever you, and it's about 350, 380. Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, put a number of charge counters on Vexing puzzle box equal to the result.
Yep.
Tap, add 1 mana of any color, roll a d20, but then tap, remove 100 charge counters from Vexing Puzzle Box, search your library for an artifact card, put that onto the battlefield, and then shuffle.
Hmm.
So you put it in the yeast thinking that we're going to be able to get that 100 charge counters fairly quickly once this
Very
comes out.
easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I can almost see it, BigTuck, and I'm not doing Magical Christmas Land. With the way that this deck should be built, you should probably be able to get very close to that 100 the turn it comes in.
Really? With all the
There's a
other
there's more D20 roll cards than there are the
yeah.
other like 5 combined.
Okay.
So if you're
Yeah,
always
yeah,
rolling
yeah.
D20s and using your barbarian class to get rid of the lowest number to roll again, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you might be loading 40 plus counters per resolution of a card.
Let me ask you another question. How many of your yeast cards roll d20s?
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I was just curious because like I had some. We'll talk about when we get there. But anyways, for me, just to wrap up my grain section, like I said, it's a mana rock. It's a better manolith. Hashtag suck it, Squee McGee. This is truly a better manolith because even if you don't, you get something for doing nothing, right?
Yep.
It's like a long term investment, right?
Hmm.
People aren't gonna try to kill this thing until it gets too late, and then by then you've already gotten all your value out of it.
Yep. Yeah, and the reason I'll just kind of give my yeast explanation is because this is kind of like a Voltron deck. I do see things like Akroma's Memorial being important in here.
Oh
And
yeah,
like how backbreaking would it be to like Vexing Puzzle Box, Akroma's Memorial, I'm smacking you in the face
yeah,
for however
over.
much. Or, Voltron decks getting swords, Feast and
Yeah.
Famine, Fire and Dice. Yes, Fire and Dice. Uh so I feel like if you're doing Voltron, most Voltron needs some sort of artifact to kind of help boost. And just by playing the game, you're going to be cracking this vexing puzzle
Yeah.
box. Let's go worst case scenario. Once every third turn, using 2 turns to get the counters on it, then that third turn to actually use it. I mean that's very very strong.
Yeah, completely agree. And last thing I'll say about it is it's not a one time deal, right? You remove
Yep.
your 100 charge counters and you still have it around, right? You
Yep.
still get to keep it. So if you go get something that doubles your mana or something along those lines, you're just straight gas, straight off to the races.
All right. Well, my last grain card is a dragon that loves his treasures, Ancient Copper Dragon.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Come on, how could I
It's so
not?
strong.
It's so strong. So,
It's so
4
good.
colorless, red, 6/5 flyer, Elder Dragon. Isn't that funny that it's an Elder Dragon, but it's not a legendary? Like, I would feel like if you're an Elder Dragon, you would be a legendary.
This is going down.
Uh-oh.
So not every dragon in Dungeons and Dragons you can meet like in the wild an ancient dragon that's not like a thing of legend. That's just like he was one of 16 dragon children and 4 of them grew up to be this old.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But that's it. That's all I got. Like that's the only reason why I also think it's silly, which is again kind of why I think it's silly that we're mixing these two worlds with whatever. Mitz can boo. like I said, the greatest example, MrCombo, one of the best planeswalkers ever printed in the game, literally can't form a straight sentence because he's taken too many hits to the head. So there you go.
So it has flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20, and you get that many treasure tokens equal to the result. So it's giving us
Yeah.
our dice roll. It's an insanely powerful effect that hopefully we're getting at least 10 plus treasures per hit.
Mm-hmm.
And God only knows what that's going to do for us in this deck. And because we are kind of going into that Voltron piece, and I kind of talked about it, we're going to have artifacts and equipments most likely in the final build that would help protect and beef up our commander. Nothing says we can't put those things on Ancient Copper Dragon. And hey, it's
Yeah.
not commander damage, but how would you like to take 14 double strike and then oh my god, and then he double strikes and you roll 2d20s and get like 40 treasures? That's disgusting. All through
It's
the
such a build
brood.
around. Oh, there you go. Do you think if you can find this card somewhere for $40, it's like an immediate pickup, right? It looks like the lowest is 46
46.
because they're never going to reprint it, right? Like I think that's a price that's only going to go up.
No, it'll get reprinted.
What? When?
And like a commander, they'll probably do it in the next commander set that comes out.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. That'd
So,
be awesome.
but
That'd be so sick.
46 dollars, I don't think it's good enough for that unless you're doing a that Perfuro sneak attack deck because it's just like 6 mana, no haste. It has evasion, but it has no protection, and
Yeah,
people are immediately going to try to kill it.
yeah.
So
This is like a game warping card, right?
yes, it very
Yeah,
much is. If it was something that you just got in a pack, I would say hold on to it, do not sell it. But I don't know if it is so powerful enough and resilient enough that it's worth me spending a net new $40.
yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the grain section. Now, before we head over to our hot profile, we would love for you to check out our Etsy store we mentioned earlier at etsy.com, CMDTower in the search bar. We do have our holiday sweaters, our foil playmats, our sleeves, everything you could possibly need for your Magic the Gathering experience. And if you sign up for even our $3 Patreon, you do get a 20% discount. So please, anything you guys do on there definitely goes back into the channel, etsy.com, CMDTower in that search bar. Now we're going to head over to the hops. And BigTuck, I'm curious where you're going to go with this because your grains, I could pretty much guess that. Vexing
Sure.
puzzle box, barbarian class, component pouch, totally makes sense. The hop section, I think we're going to be able to get a little wild.
I got one that's really good, and then two that are more on the theme.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with the wilder one because there's a million effects to this version because this card does deal with giving haste, right? But I think that we've already identified that there's a lot of tokens being put on, a lot of counters being put on things, and that sort of thing. So I think one that will automatically give haste everything that you need, plus be able to slowly pump up your commander, is one one of the better ones in the slot. I've seen this card do work. And that card is Invigorating Hot Springs. So a colorless and gruull, that's a colorless, a green, and a red for an enchantment out of Kamigawa, the most recent one, for 8 cents. It enters the battlefield with 4 1/1 counters on it. Then modified creatures you control have haste, equipment, auras you control, and counters are modification. Then you can remove a counter from Invigorating Hot Springs, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, activate this only as a sorcery and only once each turn. So for me, your commander is going to be able to get a counter on it fairly regularly, right? Like we're going to be rolling dice and all that jazz. So it's immediately going to be off the gates there. I like the fact that this can also get the counter train going. If we want to play into things like doubling season and that sort of stuff, this is going to be a way that we can at least get a first counter onto our commander, even if we don't have even if we don't have any dice rolling mechanics in our hand. Then obviously I think the haste part is huge in this deck. We want this deck to kind of come out of nowhere. And comparative to Fires of Yagamaya or the other one where it's like people gain riot, this is the one that I feel like is the best suit for this deck.
This is interesting. Um, hmm. So you like this more than the fires?
Yes. And the other one, what's a riot one? There's one that gives the things you have
Rhythm of
riot,
the
rampage of the
No, is it not Rhythm of the Wild? That's the Garuk draw
no.
card. Is it Rhythm of the
I
Wild?
think it is Rhythm of the Wild. Yes, it is. It is Rhythm of the Wild.
Oh, okay. So you like this more than Rhythm of the Wild?
Yes, mostly because this will give the counter and give haste. That's why I
Hmm.
like it more because we can get the counter game rolling. Whereas with Rhythm of the Wild, you kind of only get one or the other.
Gotcha.
And also,
Gotcha.
and also from not, we all know budget is everything, but Rhythm of the Wild is sneaking up around $5,
Wow.
which is quite a bit, right? Especially
Yeah.
for what's kind of a jank dice rolling deck. Again, money isn't everything, but I feel that I like the fact that you can kind of do both with this one.
Cool. All right. My next one. It's a bit expensive CMC. That card's only
Oh,
a
here we
buck.
go.
We're rolling a couple D12s, baby, and we're either dealing a lot of damage to
Oh,
Creech or we're making some treasures. How
hold
about
on.
a
What's this
little
one called?
reckless endeavor for you?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
5 colorless red sorcery, $8. Roll 2d12s, choose one result. Reckless endeavor deals damage equal to that result to each creature, then create a number of treasure tokens equal to the other result. I love this card because it's
Sweep it, baby. Sweep
so
it.
freaking modal. It's not even funny. Because
Yeah.
let's just say you get a 10 and a 4. It's like, okay, do I want 10 treasures and 4 damage to each creature? Okay, like maybe my commander lives and it kind of kills everything, but man, I got 10 treasures. Or is it, you know what? I'd rather just get 4 treasures and deal complete board wipe, almost a
A board wipe.
blasphemous act type of effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that instead. Like, and then if you have your barbarian class out there, you're rolling a third one, and it's like, okay, how do I want to do this?
Yeah.
I love this card so much. I wish it was more playable in other decks because this seems like it'd be a lot of fun to resolve.
Yeah, it's expensive, but again, I'm not worried about mana in this deck particularly, right? I think we're gonna get off to the races and be able to get this out early. So yeah, I think this is like borderline. I think it's like a staple in any deck that cares about dice rolling, right? It kind of has
Yeah.
to be because it's just so strong. And it's also kind of a chaotic card, which we know I'm a huge fan of. I like the fact that you could go one way or another, and you
Hmm.
don't know until you see the results of the dice.
Yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah,
All right,
hell yeah.
Tuck, give us your next hop.
So you would say after I explain this card to you, Big Tuck, why don't you just play Deflecting SWAT? Because it's kind of a better version of this. And to which I say, you, sir, have not understood the point of the deck. Because it's not Reverberate, but it is in fact a reversal.
Oh, yes, it is.
Three.
3, 2, 1. Wiles
Wiles
reversal.
Reversal!
2 colorless red instant. Suck it.
Ah, yes. Snuck it away from me. And it's a 30 cents. Okay. Choose a target spell or ability with one or more targets. Roll a d20 and add the greatest power among creatures you control, which is
Yes.
insane. Insane.
Let's
So 1 through
go.
14, you may choose new targets for that spell or ability. 15, you may choose new targets for that spell or ability, then copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. I mean, our commander is going to be at least 10 most of the time, I would wager to guess, right? If not even higher than that, depending on how fast we
Hopefully.
can roll. So the downside of it, like it's kind of the same. If this card didn't have the greatest power among creatures you control, I think it's still fine in this deck. I think it's a little sweatier, right?
Sure.
Because it's a lot more chance based. But the fact that we're playing creatures, it's gruull. We're gonna make these creatures huge. This is gonna be such a blowout on the right card,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Saving our commander, killing someone else's commander, who knows what, taking extra turns. The possibilities are limitless.
Now, I will say for everyone that's pulling out their hair right now, yes, deflecting SWAT is better than this card, even in
Correct.
this
Yes.
deck. Even in this deck. But if you wanted to have a second deflecting SWAT, yes,
Yes.
Wiles reversal, absolutely. Or you just can't afford a deflecting SWAT because they're probably like $50 now or whatever, $40. But yeah, the greatest power thing, and so I don't go as magical Christmas land as you do. I would think our
Sure.
commander is probably going to be 6 most of the time,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but like that 6 to 7 realm. When you think about it, when creatures are above 10 and they don't have any protection on them, they don't last. So,
Yeah, that's very
um,
true.
but I think if it's at 6, it's like okay, we just have to roll a 9 on a d20. So we actually have a let's call it 50. What's that? 54% chance? No, 55% chance to get the 15
Yeah.
plus. I think that is absolutely worth
Yeah.
it. Plus, most people are actually going to be thinking if you're holding up 3 mana, it's Chaos Warp and like a
Oh,
Gruul deck.
true. Yeah.
They will not even see this coming.
Exactly. Do you think that this card is even better than like a Reverberate or something along those lines in this deck, right? By a country mile. Like
No,
any
not
of
a
those other
country mile
copy
because a
spells.
reverberate's just 2 mana.
Right, but it copies the spell, it doesn't change the target of it.
Yeah, but most of the time when you're using reverberate, it's to reverberate a counter spell and then you're redirecting it at
Sure.
your reverberate. So
Right, right, right.
that's where I don't think that applies. Because I don't see many people trying to use reverberate when people swords to plowshares or path to exile. It's like, okay, whatever. Because like you said,
Right.
it can't redirect it. But no, I think this is a cool card, and I think as long as you either can't afford a deflecting swat or you just want deflecting swat 2 in the deck, I think it
Yeah,
works
right.
great.
Round 2. Right
All
there
right.
with you. I think this card's crazy good.
So the one I wanted to talk about next for me, and this will be my last card. I wonder, once you actually get the deck done, how much ETB effects will be in here. ETB do this, ETB do that. And so I kind of wonder if like a Conjurer's Closet may make sense if you have like 10, 15 creatures. They're not my card though. I think this card's
Oh,
good enough just for the one time you get to do it. But I think if you're able to repeat it, this thing becomes backbreaking in your hops for Earth Cult Elemental. 4 colorless, red, creature elemental 6/6. When it ETBs, roll a d20. 1 through
oh,
9, each player sacks a permanent. 10 through 19, each opponent sacks a permanent. Get a nat 20, each opponent sacrifices 2 permanents. And it's 4 cents. So
right.
I really see this card as big dude, gonna get us a dice roll. It's gonna do what our commander wants. And yeah, you know what? Maybe we end up having to sacrifice one of the treasures that we've made or a land if we get the 1
Yeah.
through 9. Most likely, we're going to have cards like Barbarian's Class out there where we're going to be rolling 2d20s. And hey, I got a 1 on one, but I got 11 on the other. Okay, each opponent sacrifices a permanent.
Yeah.
But on the off chances you can get that 20, that's amazing. But I think if there's a way that you can blink this on each of your turns and you're able to repeat it over and over and over, or even sacrifice itself to a fling effect and then bring it back from the graveyard, I think that's where Earthcut Elemental honestly becomes a standard for this deck, as long as you have
Yeah.
some sort of package in there. But even without that, I think it's fine just to get us that dice roll, and now we got a 6/6 body as a blocker or attacker.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's a lot of if you go to like the EDH direct page for the Space Family, you see a lot of creatures that are just like the ETB and do something, right? They roll a
Hmm.
dice and you gain life, or if you get super lucky, something amazing happens. Whereas I feel like this one is pretty solid across the board, right?
Yeah.
For an uncommon, it's you're paying 6 for a 6/6. Put a if you're playing a Vigorine Hot Springs, it's a 7/7 with haste. I feel like out of most of the creatures that are like ETB roll dice, this is one of the strongest options by a huge, huge margin.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, Tuck, why don't you complete the hop section with your last card?
So this is in Prosper, and this is a card that I've always thought was very interesting,
Okay.
but I don't know why it wasn't in another one. It is a land, which I like as well, and it doesn't come into play untapped. Or sorry, it comes into play untapped. So we are talking about Underdark Rift. So this is another uncommon from the original Forgotten Realms for 9 cents, also part of the list for 17 cents. If you really need to get that list version, great. It enters the battlefield and you can tap it to add a colorless. It doesn't come into play tapped. And then 5 colorless, tap, exile it, roll a d10, put target artifact, creature, or planeswalker into its opponent's library just beneath the top X cards of the library, where X is the result. Activate only as a sorcery, which is kind of the stinky part of it, right? Like
Yeah.
this card would be a lot better to be more responsive. But for me, it's like if you're really looking for another dice roll mechanic and you want to get, and you also want to remove something that's potentially going to untap and take you out of the game, or something that's going to be really hard to deal with, I feel that this is like a solid card for that fill, especially with this dice rolling mechanic behind it.
Man, wouldn't this be great if the commander replacement effect didn't exist? Oh man,
This
let me
would be
put your
so good.
commander 8 below or 6 below.
Yeah.
I like this. I mean, I don't like that it exiles itself.
Yeah.
And so, but I think the good thing is that being in 2 colors, you can have 5 to 10 slots of utility lands without worrying about
Abs-
hurting your colors. So
absolutely.
even though I'm not super hot on the card, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't put it in, especially for less than a dime. It
Hmm.
just, on the off chance you do use it, great.
Yeah.
99% of the time, it's probably just a colorless land.
You're just tapping it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
potentially threatening or making, trying to make some sort of political deal with it, which is how I'd play the card and how I've
Yep.
played it before as well.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the hop section. Now we're going to head to our game winning area. But before we do, we would love for you guys to check out abyssproxyshop.com. And if you do make a purchase there, be sure to use code CMDTower. This is a proxy provider that we have partnered up
Woo!
with. You can see on screen our great CMD Tower proxy. That's actually a command tower proxy, obviously. And so, very high quality cards. With our code, you do get 10% off. Plus, they do custom decks. I want to say it's usually about $400, but that's a completely custom art deck pulled from whatever images you want to provide, whatever card style, frame art, all of that. And you can still use your CMD Tower discount to get a 10% off of that bad boy. But prices start at just $3. I think the foils go up to 6. So it's definitely affordable. And hey, Wizards of the Coast is charging $1,000 for 4 packs of proxies. I think you guys can go out and spend 10, $15 at abyssproxyshop.com, code CMD Tower. Now we're
Nailed
going to
it.
head over to the yeast section. And let's see. I'm going to start with a card that usually I'm not a big fan of, but I like it in here because it's an introducing dice rolling. It's a little bit of chaos. It's going to require our opponents to maybe have a certain type of spell in their library that we're going to be able to cast for free. We are talking Wands of Wonder.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
3 colorless red artifact with an activated ability of 4 colorless tap. Roll a d20. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card, then shuffle the rest into the library. You may cast up to X instant or sorceries from among the cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. If your d20 result is a 1 through 9, X equals 1, 10 through 19, X equals 2, 20, X equals 3. So, once again, I think for me, with this deck, with our dice manipulation, we're probably always going to be in the X equals 2 realm. And
Yeah.
just how great is that going to feel? Plus, I love that the exiled cards do not go on the bottom of the libraries if you at the end of turn if you decide not to cast them. They stay in exile. So it's like, oh, that's an all is dust. How about we leave that in
Yes.
exile? I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, counter spell, force of will. Leave that stuff out of here. But most likely, I would hope if the X is 2, at least one of the two is going to be draw 3 cards. Uh, maybe it's a tutor.
Yes.
Maybe it's a rift and you're able to just single target something. I think there's just too much value with this,
Yep.
and instant and sorceries in library is a better gamble for me than like a Diluvian Primordial, like where I hopefully you casted one at some point in the game that I'll actually want to then cast again.
Yeah, I completely agree here. I think that even in creature heavy or non-instant sorcery spellslinger decks, there are cards that are going to be really good for them that you don't want them to get, right?
Yep.
Tutoring equipment, so on and so forth. So slam dunk here, and I will say this: one thing I just noticed that's kind of cool is that the wand turns into that Dungeons and Dragons ampersand that makes it look like,
Oh, that's
yeah,
kind of cool.
like remember how like we always joke about how the Dungeons and Dragons cards with the ampersands on them are like a gazillion dollars.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this card. I'm here for this card a lot. I think this is really fun. Add a little chaos into the game. Never have to argue that for me.
All right. Well, Tuck, why don't you give me your first yeast card, and I'll see if I can argue with you on that.
Okay, I got two. I got this is a plus. I got two pluses.
Okay.
Okay, I got a card and a card. So the first one is the other ancient dragon that we can run in here, which is ancient bronze dragon, which is also incredible. So 5 colorless double green for a 7/7 flyer. That's a mythic for around $8. When it deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. When you do, put X 1/1 counters on up to each of 2 target creatures where X is the result. So that's a lot. That's a lot of counters, right? Either on itself or on
Yep.
something else potentially. I like the fact that it's up to 2 target creatures. So if you only have the one, it's still got to get your value out of there. You're going to make your commander huge, give him his trample with everything else that we're doing. Off to the races there.
I
So I
think
assume
this
you're good on
card.
that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this card is just stupid because you don't even have to split up the plus counters if you decide to put
Right.
it on. It just says on each of up to 2. Wait, hold on. Am I reading that wrong? I think I might be trying to overbreak this card. Yeah, I think I'm
Each
wrong.
two.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
But the way my brain initially processed it was like, wait, if I get like a 17, do I put 17 counters on one and 17 on another? No.
Oh, wait.
Is
Is
that?
it? Hold on. When you
No, no, no,
do
no.
put
Where
X,
X is the result. So I think you'd have to divide them.
puts. Okay, when you do, so let's say it's 17, like you said, right? When you do put 17 1/1 counters on each of up to 2 target creatures, I think you get 17 for both of them.
Oh my god,
It's
that's
not
so
it's not
disgusting.
distributed, it's just there,
That's disgusting.
right?
How okay, see, I think you and I must be wrong because there's no way that the card actually does that and you can pick up one for $7.
Because it's a dice roll, and like treasures are more powerful than 1/1 counters, right?
I guess. All right, so
But I
what's
think
this apparent like second
okay.
card you're like comboing with?
Oh, it's incredible. This I can't remember. This is one that should be banned from me talking. One of the other podcasts I talked about recently, they like banned themselves from talking about other movies if they talk about it 10 times or more, which would be funny if we went through and found that. But again, just with this card alone, you can make a huge swing in the game if you connect one time. Because then what you do is you play the BigTuck staple, desperately needing a reprint of Chandra's Ignition. 3 colorless, double red for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage to its power to each other creature and each opponent. So again, put 17 on. So let's keep going with the 17, right?
Okay.
Let's say 10, right? Let's say
Okay.
10. Half. No other factors. So if you can connect with Bronze Dragon and you get 50% of it, you then cast it and it's dealing 17 to each other opponent and 17 to each other creature. And then you just swing in and get it even bigger next turn. That's just on him, let alone on the Space Family Goblinson that we've been slamming counters on and making huge the entire game.
Wow.
It's not that much to ask, right? It's not that much to ask to pull these two things off.
So, okay, we've talked about two of the dragons that it's like deal damage and you roll dice. Like,
Yeah.
do we need to put just double strike effects in the deck?
Uh where was one? Hold on.
I mean, I definitely think a Chroma's Memorial fits in the deck,
Yes.
just with the Space Family and our tutor for artifacts. But like, I'm really
S-
wondering, like, do we want to try to get these guys like over and over and
So
over?
hold that thought for my next one. Hold that thought for
Okay.
my next one. Hold
Oh
on to that.
God, I just realized
Okay?
that aggravated assault and ancient copper dragon almost goes infinite as long as you always get above 5.
Yeah, pretty much.
God. All right. Well, that was crazy. That definitely blew my wand of wonder away. Well, I had vexing puzzle box in here. I've already talked about it.
Sure.
So the last one I'm going to end on with my yeast package is a Hydra with XX.
Oh, that was really, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's really
Yeah.
good.
Never Winter Hydra. This
Yes.
card is bananas. So, Neverwinter Hydra, XX green green. So, if you're not familiar with X cards, if it says XX and you put 2 total mana into that, that would be X equals 1. So, basically, just think those are mana costs, and whatever you put into one X, you have to put into the other X. It's a 0/0, and it ETBs roll XD6s. It enters with a number of +1 counters on it equal to the total of those results. It does have trample, and it does have ward 4. So whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability opponent controls, counter it unless they pay 4. So for me, this seems like such an amazing card. We're getting all these treasures. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do X equals 10. So for 22 mana, I'm going to
Yeah.
roll 10 D6s. That's 10 triggers for the family Goblinson. Probably going to command damage someone out. And then your Chandra's Ignition. Who, God knows how big this thing's going to be.
Oh,
66s, the potential 60 power. And then you got your
it's
Barbarian class allowing you to roll again. Like, I would imagine as long as you're able to do 2 rolls for each X, if you did X equals 10, there's no way this thing's less than 45 power.
no, it's so good. And the ward is huge, right? Because people are going to be like, oh, I can just Swords of Plowshare it. Not anymore. Sorry, you're
Yep.
wrong. I think that this completely examples the way that I think this deck wins, right? Just with this like huge dice rolling, these huge powered creatures, and figuring out some way that we're going to be able to make huge big swings with them too.
Yep. Totally agree. All right, Tuck. Well, you're the only one left with some yeasty stuff. What do you got?
All right, so I'm gonna save my favorite of these for last. The first one I think is gonna be really good. Like we talked about, we're gonna have plenty of big swinging creatures, right? There's gonna be piles of them. So I think Indomitable Might is gonna be a way that we're really gonna get a lot of utility out of these. So three colorless and a green for an enchantment aura. It's flash, enchantment creature gets +3/+3, but most importantly, enchanted creature's controller may have it assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So for me, this is like a one shot kill with our Goblinson, right? There could be a time where we run out of dice rolls, right? Like there's
Yep.
only so many of them, and we're like, we don't have any left, right?
Hmm.
This way you already get the buff up, which is great, but the assigning combat damage, even if we can't get it to have the trample, we're still going to go through, and even if they want to block or triple block or quadruple block, whatever the case may be, this is like a single player removal is how I kind of view this card in the right circumstance in this deck.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, this could also be for, hey, I really need to get my dragon through to roll the d20
Yes.
for the stuff. Like, hey, I'll flash it onto that. I mean, it's not what I would like to do. I'd like to do it on the command damage, but I think we're going to have enough big things in here that this will see a lot of play. I wish it wasn't 4 mana. That kind of sucks.
I
Um,
know, like but I don't know. I don't think mana is going to be an issue in this deck. You know, like I think Gruul decks just lean heavy into this. You don't think
yeah,
you
maybe
think the CMC is going to be out of control?
I do. I'm kind of curious. Do you think Raincore goes in here?
I think so. Like that was kind of on the list, right? Like I think Rancor is
Yeah,
a really good addition into it because we're doing the Voltron thing, right? And just having some semblance of evasion on our commander that's repeatable and cheap is probably worth it. I don't know.
yeah.
I think Rancor is criminally underplayed in decks. I think people want to just play it in spam or enchantment decks, where in reality it's like one of the most efficient ways to win with a Voltron commander. So I
Yeah.
think that would be a great. I think that'd be a great inclusion too.
Okay. Well, what is your final yeast thing that apparently you are hot and excited for?
We talked about double strike, right? And there's a myriad of things that do double strike, that do pluses, all that other stuff. But since we are, like, you said it yourself, right? The most the most common die that we're probably going to be rolling are going to be D6s or D20s, right? Pretty much across the board. So that's where this instant comes into play. Critical hit. So a colorless and red for an instant. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. Whenever you roll a nat 20, return critical hit from your graveyard to your
Ooh,
hand.
I like that.
Yeah, right? So even if we are blowing this on one of our ancient copper dragons or Neverwinter Hydra or whatever, just to swing in a pile of damage, we have the chance with the Barbarian class and the other things that let us reroll to try to get it back later in the game. So I kind of view this as like a vexing puzzle box where it's like you're this is a game-winning card that also will reward you just for playing what you want to do in the deck,
Yeah,
right?
this is so
This is
so
sick, right?
good. Yeah. Like this seems like the kind of card if there was enough dice rolling in like a feather deck, like it's like, hey, it's kind of like a backup feather because you'll always be able
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
rebound it if you need to. I really like this. This is
Is it
sexy.
too? So what about this? If in your feather deck, right? If let's say that you just added in two cards, this and Vexing Puzzle Box. That's I know that's sweaty. I know that's sweaty. It's
It
not
wouldn't be
sliming, it's sweaty.
I don't think Vexing Puzzle Box has a home in a feather deck because, to be honest, most feather decks don't do the artifact stuff. It's all the cantrip
Oh.
spells.
Hmm,
So,
hmm.
now Vexing Puzzle Box could have a home in my mono white Esha deck. That could actually be something where it's like, hey, it's really just a mana rock, but maybe I crack it and I'm going in tutoring up whatever disgusting
Yeah,
artifact I want,
you just get
or
lucky.
even my mono white vehicle deck. Like that could be good.
Oh
Mycosynth
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Lattice,
yeah.
bringing that out. So I do think there's a oh god, Kadoltha Forge Master. Um, Jesus, that's nasty.
So vexing puzzle box is not enough to put if you're just doing so if you're playing, is there a deck where you feel like because you have vexing puzzle box, this is also a splash if it's combat focused in these colors, or is it too much to ask not only to get vexing puzzle box but to also roll a d20 and get more than one use out of this?
Yeah, I think you'd have to have more than Vexing Puzzle Box. I think for
Okay,
critical hit to
yeah.
be in your deck, you probably need, let's just call it 10 dice rolling cards in there. You
Yeah.
should at least have 10% of your deck involve dice rolling. So that way you do have like effectively maybe once per game you end up getting a dice rolling card. So then you could actually do
Yeah.
this.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But we talked about. I think this is another. I think that because ancient Copper Dragon is so good. That's
Yeah.
like okay. If you're in for a pound, if you're in for a penny with that, like, is there other cards that like Will's Reversal that's also red? Where you're like, okay, we're kind of getting close. Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe,
maybe. Maybe. Well,
maybe.
that's going to wrap up our yeast package. And before we head over to Respice, we would love for you, obviously, if you guys are watching us out on Twitch right now, thank you so much. But
Hi.
twitch.tv/CMDTower. We do want to highlight Slinging Cardboard Rectangles. That is our gameplay series where we do play with patrons and other content creators across the community. Um, but actually, you guys will hear this before the episode actually airs. So in the month of November, I'll be taking that over for Big Tuck. The episode on the 14th is going to have two very exciting creators out there. EDH Neo Royale. We're going to have
Oh,
Kuro
great.
Hitsuki. We're going to have SD Sharpie. And we're actually going to be doing Plane Chase on SCR. Pretty excited about
Nice.
that. And then November 28th, that will be me, our moderator, Marketing Ross, but very excited. Jim from the Spike Feeders and Sean from Commander's Brews going to be on. We're basically
Nice.
doing any background. You could take any of your commander decks and assign a background in the command zone. It just has to match the color identity. So if you're out for some crazy gameplay
Sick.
action, definitely subscribe to our Twitch channel so you get those alerts at twitch.tv/CMDTower. Now let's head over to the Spice. And Big Tuck, I'll let you start. What is the first spice card you thought would be cool in this already spicy deck?
Okay. So this is one that I thought you were going to talk about in the yeast. So I have two. I have one that I think is good and one I put in here mostly just to see your reaction, like I said. So I'm going to go with the good one first and end
Okay.
on the last one. So this one I think is sneaky kind of good, but I don't know if if there's enough oomph here to make a difference. So this is a curse in red.
Yes, it is.
Okay, you thought this was a spite too?
Oh yeah. Three,
Okay.
2, 1. Maddening
Maddening
Hex.
Hex. Wow.
So
Colorless and a
good.
red for an enchantment. That's a rare.
It's $12.
What? Holy shit.
Oh my god. Enchant player. Whenever enchanted player casts a non-creature
What?
spell, roll a d6. Maddening Hex deals damage to that player equal to the result, then attach Maddening Hex to another one of your opponents chosen at random. I love this card for this deck. It's so
Yeah.
spicy.
Yeah. Why is it $12 though?
I don't know. The borderless copy is 21.
I know this has only been printed in one pre-con from whatever that was, I'm pretty sure. But like okay, price is very surprising. The reason why I put this in the spice personally is because it's only 1 through 6 damage, right? And I don't think it's gonna. And you kind of only get it once 3 times a rotation. Let's call it right. Potentially unless it reattaches to them. So I feel like that's why it's a spicy card, right? It's not gonna really help you win the game. It's kind of just like moving it along. It doesn't really ramp you or anything like that. So that's why I think it's a spice card.
So
You on
for
the same boat with
me,
that?
I think you put it to your first person to your left. The very
Mm,
first spell or non-creature spell they're going to cast, it's going to trigger. And then it's basically you're guaranteed getting another one from one of the other two opponents. So like your
right.
initial rotation, you're getting 2 dice rolls. And actually for me, it's not so much the damage. This is allowing us to do dice rolls on our opponent's turns for the Space Family Goblin Syndicate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's more my thing. But then even Tuck, say it goes on the middle of your 3 opponents, you have a 50-50 shot that'll go to the player
Yeah.
to your right. And then when they go, you could care less which one of the other two it goes to. I think this is also going to cause a lot of your blue players to kind of pause. Like, do I
Yeah.
want to do a counter spell? Because then I'm, probably going to be taking this damage. Is it going to bait people? Like, hey, I just need to get something
Right.
out because I need this curse off of me, and then that way I can just kind of focus. So I think this will actually become this funny political card where your opponents, because you don't control where it goes, it attaches to someone. Like say it goes
Right.
on Sir Nathan, he's like, "Gosh, dang it, I don't want this on me," and he just casts something really quick just to get it to switch. I think it creates this turmoil amongst your opponents.
Uh okay, I just realized why this card is so much. because in Legacy and Vintage, it always is going to go back to the same opponent over and over and over again.
Oh. Oh God. Oh, that's so funny.
Not how we play, but hey,
Nope.
what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? All right. Well, we both shared that one. I did have one other as well, and let's just say it's a bag of tricks. It's
Go ahead.
a bag of tricks.
Okay, it's just bag of
uh,
tricks.
so for me, a colorless green artifact, 4 colorless green tap, roll a d8, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card with a mana value equal to the result. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You can get it for 11 cents. So the reason I put this in the spice is because I don't actually know how much creatures we're going to have in the deck. And if it's truly going to be valuable, I mean, I'm going to assume being in Gruull, we're going to at least have 15 creatures, 17. I just don't know dice
Yeah,
rolling to like the non-creature spell side to the creature side, like what that actually looks like. And if you actually want to have a good dice rolling deck, maybe it's 30% creatures, 70% non-creatures. So then it's like, am I really getting the value?
yeah,
Potentially, is the D8 going to hit all of your creatures? Like, even if you get an 8, will that be able to hit all of them? Or are you going to have some potential 9, 10s, 11s
yeah,
that you're going to miss out on? Are you going to freaking hit? Because it's not even a May ability. You have to put it out. Like,
yeah,
how bad would it feel to do the Hydra? And it's like, gosh dang it. Okay,
yeah,
it comes out. So it is a spice card because you're not always going to be happy with the result. But I think at least getting that dice roll consistently, I think
yeah.
you will be happy about that.
And so I think this is definitely a spice because it says equal to result, right? If it was equal or less, I think that's a lot stronger
Mhm.
because you might get like a 3 and you've already played all your threes. But I
Oh,
do like
sure.
the fact that like it just keeps going until it finds one, right? So
Yep.
you're always going to you're going to if you build your deck right, like you said, and you have the sprinkling of all the different CMCs in it, you're going to get something out of it. It's not going
Yep.
to always be a whiff, right? Which where it's like a lot of these cards where it's like reveal the top 8 cards of your library and put a creature card onto them, then you completely get hosed on them for a 5 mana investment. So I agree, this is definitely a spice and can be better or worse depending on how you build your deck out.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll point out is that at least they designed the card where we're not restricted during our turn or sorcery speed. You could do
Yes,
this whenever
yes,
you feel like it.
yeah. Gives you something to do on if your board's wiped out and you just like you're kind of low on gas. It gives you something to do.
Something. Yeah. All right, Tuck. You're the last one with the spice. Which one are you going to have me apparently rip my hair out?
You trashed this card so much in my Prosper deck. I still think it's great, but in
No,
this
it's
one,
not.
it does give you a free dice roll for 4 mana and is also a mana rock when you need it. We're talking about our boy, Ebony Fly. You know it, you love it. 2 colorless for an artifact. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a colorless. 4, roll a d6 until end of turn. You may have it become an XX flying XX insect artifact creature token, or sorry, an XX insect artifact creature with flying, where X is the result. Whenever it attacks another targeting creature, it gains flying until end of turn. You only need this and the goblin out there because you're going to swing this into someone who doesn't have any flyers after you roll a d6 3 times in the late game. You get your commander flying. It's got his evasion. You don't even have to worry about trample, and then bam, starts headshotting people. In the early game, it's a mana rock, innocuous. Late game, this is how you can win it out. Another form of evasion, all for a pittance of 20 cents. It's good
It's
in the deck.
it's fine in the deck because here's actually the one thing in kind of reading I'm just going through the rules. Yeah. So the one thing with this card is that you would have to stack all your activated abilities because it becomes that
Oh,
I think it might lose its
it
effect.
might lose it. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. So definitely don't quote me on that. Would love for you guys to comment about how wrong I am about it. But
Yeah, come in,
that's the
chart
only
smart.
thing that I kind of look at is like maybe if you are trying to get multiple D6 rolls, you'd have to pay it multiple times. Um, but it's fine in the deck. It's fine in the deck.
So
It's a
here's
spice card through and through.
here's so here's the last thing I want to say. If you have the means, you might if you can build this before SCR in a few weeks or have any inkling, get this. In the errata, while playing plane chase, rolling the planar die will cause any ability that triggers whenever a player rolls one or more dice to trigger. However, any effect that refers to a numerical result will ignore the rolling of the plane or die.
Oh, okay. But just rolling
Which
a
is
die. Oh my god,
does
that's
this just
so
does this just
funny.
does this just become your plane chase deck?
I mean, maybe. I no, actually, it would probably become too OP for plane chase.
I think it'd be strong, right?
I think it'd be too strong, too swole, too fast,
Too
too
sweet,
furious,
too sweet.
too much family. Well, hey, everyone, thanks for making it to the end of the episode. Oh, wow. This was absolutely insanity.
This was awesome.
If you guys enjoyed it, I know Chard Spark does. Please leave a positive feedback, subscribe to our channels, leave a star review so others can find us as well. And if you'd like to get a hold of us, here's how you could do that. You can get a hold of me at MrComboNumber5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. You can reach our main account at CMDTower on Twitter as well. BigTuck, where can people get a hold of you?
Still at BigTuck tweeting. I think I posted a couple things this week, maybe, which was kind of surprising. So um, that's it. That's where I'm at. Come find me.
You guys will be able to find the YouTube video, the audio links, the deck list, all of that good stuff over at cmdtower.com/BNBE159. And of course, if you guys are looking for additional ways to support our channel, you could do it through a myriad of ways. Our Patreon at patreon.com/CMDtower, abyssproxyshop.com, code CMDTower, and Etsy.com, CMDTower in the search bar. All three ways are ways that you can support us. The Abyss Proxy Shop gives you a discount. If you subscribe to our Patreon, you get full access into our Discord and opportunities to be on the channel, plus a discount into the Etsy store as well. So, Big Tuck, man, this was a wild, wild deck. Space Family Goblinson. I mean, do you feel like this potentially could be a viable commander?
I think so. Like, I think it's going to be sweaty, and I don't think it's going to be one that's going to win you a gazillion games, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking for a deck in Gruull that does Gruull stuff, but kind of makes it a little more difficult for you, or like you like rolling dice and that's like a fun mechanic for you, this is
Hmm.
probably one of the better ways to do it, in my opinion. People will be like, "Oh, what about the dragon precon?" It's like that just kind of does Gruull stuff. Whereas this, I think, is like a lot more fun, a lot more dynamic, and you get to play a bunch of cards that are relatively cheap, except for the ancient dragons of the world and the man-made hexes for whatever reason. So yeah, like I went into this kind of lukewarm and actually ended on it pretty hot. Like I think this is actually this could be a really fun deck.
Yeah, I do too. And I would only hope that they're going to print more dice rolling. Like, you
Yeah,
don't need to have a whole set with a bunch of dice rolling mechanics, but just kind of like how initially Treasure started, where it was like one or two cards per set was kind of like creating treasures or dealing with it or clues. I think that'd be fine. Like, I don't see
yeah.
anything wrong having dice mechanics in Magic the Gathering. We've already had coin flip, so dice is just another part of tabletop gaming.
You're
So I'm
every
hoping that they
every time
Oh, I was gonna say, I
every,
hope that they continue to put more of that in.
every time you play the game, you're gambling, right? You're gambling top
Yeah,
decks, you're gambling draws, you're like doing the poker thing where you're like gambling against other people where you're like, are you really gonna block? Does he really have an answer and that sort of thing? So
yep,
like it kind of I think it does kind of fit naturally if you want to build it that way.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know if it could scratch my itch for a build, but maybe I might actually include it in the Drinkathon for the Legends.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be a
All
fun
right.
one.
Well, I hope everyone has a fun and safe weekend. If you're catching us live, we'll have our schedule put out tomorrow. If you're listening to this on the recording, I hope we see you all on Monday for hashtag SCR for Plane Chase. See you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
All right, and we have stopped
Hey-oh.
recording. Thank you so much for all of the live people that tuned in today for us. We will go ahead and send any of the remaining viewers to go raid a channel.
And
And
while you're
I
doing that,
wonder,
love
huh?
everyone on Twitch. I gotta use the bathroom because we didn't have a cut session. Here we go.
Woohoo! All right, well, let's head over to Loading, Reading, Run. Everyone seems to enjoy them. And you guys will be going in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. See ya, cowboy.